Davida Sapphire with United Airlines, and we're here with James Huston. We're here to talk about his film and everything, but first I'm going to ask you to tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you. What was you saying? I was going to try to pronounce it.
Well, my name's Naomi Davida, but for the film it's Davida Sapphire.
Thank you. I'm going to have a hard time pronouncing that one. But thank you very much for having me here. And a little bit about myself. Jeez, where do I start? I've lived in eight different places so far. So Denver's the last part of my stop. Traveled the world. Got an extensive film background. I've been a teacher.
Okay.
And now I'm making a film after running a film studio myself. And I've had a film go through London and New York film festivals, but I want to have like another one that's a feature length and hopefully aim for streaming networks, free streaming networks.
And so tell us a little bit about your background and like stuff you've done already.
Okay, well, a little bit about my background. I have been a teacher. I was actually teaching when I was 23. I was teaching emotional intelligence, oddly enough. And I've done a lot in the film industry. My first round in Los Angeles, I was in doing stuff in the extra industry. Like I had been in, I was in Heroes and I was in Cold Case. Actually, on Heroes, I met the guy who played Spock in the most recent Star Trek. And he's a tall guy. He was sitting down just like this. And the makeup artist is like just, up to his head while he's sitting. And out of there, moved around some more, and eventually I ended up in San Francisco again, pursuing a degree in animation. I already had a degree in film. After 2 years of being homeless, because I ended up being homeless, I was homeless for 2 years. Out of that, I was able to start a film studio somehow. It takes a lot of endurance. I was able to have a successful enough business that I had the film studio and a roof over my head. But running a film studio and trying to make your own artwork, you can't kind of do both.
Yeah.
And I was having so much more success making my own artwork without the studio somehow. And that kind of brings me to the day. I ended up having some medical conditions after I closed the studio, and then I had to come be with family here in Colorado. The medical conditions actually got to a point, it was seizures, and got to a point where I was not moving or talking, and I actually considered suicide because it looked like I was gonna spend the rest of my life like Stephen Hawking, because it was getting that bad. Had some medical breakthroughs, and you push hard enough, you not necessarily believe, but between the doctors, between my own intuition, between all the spiritual stuff, I don't know.
Well, it's great that you're doing fine, and I understand some of that going on because they told me like 5 years ago that I was dying, and I wasn't supposed to be here. So I can understand that kind of thing, and I actually was like up to 400 pounds, and I had my first heart attack at 27. So now I'm just like down, and a lot of things have, so I can understand where you're coming from and stuff. So that is very hard and very nice to overcome, but it's really nice that the doctors can be wrong, because they also told me when I was premature that I wasn't going to be, I was going to live past a certain age, and I'm already 30. So it's like, I made it. So I understand that kind of thing, and where you're coming from. And I do think, with this, spiritual part, I do believe there is a God. I mean, I don't believe in religion or anything, so I understand about that. But I don't ever believe what the doctors say, because they say something else about life and stuff says another thing. So it's kind of interesting.
Well, and going off of what you said, I was raised atheist, but over time, I kind of grew into this place where I wouldn't say that I'm even agnostic. I'm more of I consider myself a philosopher. I mean, I've read a little bit of the Bible, not all of it. I've read the Dhammapada, read the Tao Te Ching, even read a little bit of the Quran. And spirituality. I mean, atheism is to me just another religion. I mean, they all have a common theme in terms of having a certain faith. And I do think about, one of the things that Robert Langdon in the Da Vinci Code series says in terms of, I haven't been blessed, I'm too much of an academic, I haven't been blessed with faith. And that's kind of how I feel about
Yeah, that's how we are, because my brother and I, we don't believe in religions. We've studied every religion and we've taken little parts of it, because every religion has a truth.
Right?
So if you take little parts and people are like, well, you can only have one, and that's really not true. Because my brother and I really believe in magic and stuff. Like, we consider ourselves magic for Christ, which we believe in Christ, but we believe in magic, and we believe in practicing magic and stuff. And not like, I don't know how to explain it, like, we're not exactly like into it. We just believe in taking little pieces and everything and just putting it together. Because every religion has truth and stuff. So every religion has their downfalls to it. And all of them have the same thing. Like, if you don't believe like I do, I will kill you. So we try to take that out and look at everything differently. So I don't know if you know what I'm trying to say, but that's how. So you saying that, we understand that, because that's how we are and that's how my family has been.
Yeah, I mean, there can certainly be a lot of different conflicts or, connectivity within all these different spiritualities.
Because, like, I've never been to church, so it's been really weird when people go to church and I'm like, get up in the morning. I can't do that. And, it's been weird because, my family has raised us differently, so when we see people being mean to each other or being cool to each other for religion, we don't understand. And the ways sometimes we don't understand how people are and stuff, so we're like, why? But, so we understand, that's something that I kind of do understand and stuff like that. And, the whole thing where you said you traveled around, my mom and dad used to do that. We traveled all the way from America, back and forth from the East Coast.
Yeah, and, I mean, as far as religious conflict goes, and, like, that's one of the things in the book, and subsequently the movie that I talk about. I mean, among the many things, I talk about global warming, religious conflict, war, politics, just everything. But to me, there's just so much in terms of we as humans are constantly trying to create conflict wherever there is no conflict almost. Just because we always have these ideas that, somehow from childhood, like just a little bit after that, if you're raised a certain way or you come from a different culture, you suddenly know something that this person doesn't. No, we should always be learning. We should always, as soon as we get the ability to go out and explore, if we meet aliens, we don't want to impose ourselves on them. We want to learn and teach at the same time.
Well, so people can understand what's going on. So we were talking about, your background. So let's talk about the film now. What's the name of the film and what is it about?
So the film is Winter of Empires. I wrote a book. And thematically, it's Star Trek versus Star Wars. But if you get down into like the nuts and bolts of what the film is going to be about, what the Kickstarter I'm raising money for, which ends on December 21st, it's about two galactic civilizations that aren't, neither one of them is necessarily bad. I mean, they're both different. And they meet over one mysterious planet, and they have a dispute over the territory. And they both have different reasons for that dispute. These disputes, it's spiritual, it's political, it's a lot of different reasons. Yeah.
Interesting. And what inspired you to do this? I mean, like, have you always wanted to do this, or like the one day you were just sitting there, you're like, this would be kind of cool to do?
So I've always been inspired about telling stories. When I was younger, I started telling. Like the first thing that I did, like I listened to Orson Welles do his like radio shows. He had done, War of the Worlds, and I thought, well, I've got a microphone, I can do something like that. So I was like in the middle of middle school. I mean, really young. I had a microphone on the computer. Got my friends together, and we had like an audio story. And that was my first time directing people. And I made little sound effects to go with it. And after that, I was doing video games, and finally, I ended up doing writing and filmmaking by the end of high school. And even the last 2 years of high school, I was actually attending college classes at Boston University for film. Eventually went to college for film, and I wrote my first novel even in high school, and then finally finished it through college. Like just as I was getting started, right out of high school into college. And I've just always known that I wanted to tell a story, and that was always the thing that I was best at doing. Was I wasn't the academic, really. I wasn't like super smart. I wasn't athletic, and trying to understand what I was good at in terms of how can I help people. Well, it was right there. It was the key. I was always trying to help. I was always very emotional and empathetic and intelligent in that way, and trying to be intelligently helpful. Just reach out.
It's kind of, I understand what you're trying to say, because like sci-fi is a nice way to escape the world, so it's like a nice way to help others through it. Because that's kind of like sort of how when I got into sci-fi, is that it was a way for us to escape, like one of my favorite people, artist Flora Mayo, said that escape is a wonderful word, and that's something that you can do for other people, is help them escape into your books, into your stories and stuff.
Yeah, I would agree that escape's a wonderful word. I've certainly escaped into lots of my own little stories, whether I'm writing or I'm reading, or anything else. I mean, these video games could be a great escape. Movies, if it's done right.
One of our favorite escapes was Stargate SG-1. I love that one. That was our favorite one.
With Jack O'Neill?
Yeah.
So funny. Love that character.
So, which one was your favorite, though, first? Or both of your favorite, or do you just not have a favorite for Star Trek versus Star Wars? Or do you like Star Trek more? Do you like Star Wars more? Or how do you feel about it?
So, do I like Star Trek or Star Wars more? I'd have to say that I'm more of a Trekkie myself. And I mean, that has to do with liking things like Spock a little bit more, and I'm huge into the mandate of the Federation, things like the Prime Directive. But then I'm also really big about George Lucas himself as a director. I mean, I love a lot of his films. Like, I've seen a lot of his short films. I'm also a big fan of him as a innovator. And what he's done for editing itself. I mean, he was one of the. You look at his career. If you were just to say, take him out of the field of filmmaking itself, like he hasn't made Star Wars or none of his other films like THX. Take that out, he's still an amazing innovator in the film industry because of what he's done for non-linear editing, because of what he's done for digital, because of all these things that he's done special effects wise. Just a terrific mind. And I mean, I think it's a travesty that we haven't seen more original content from him I'm still kind of hoping to see like another George Lucas film. I know it's not going to happen, but I'd love to just see, here's another science fiction film by George Lucas, not Star Wars.
It would be fun to do, just to see how, the new technology, what he can do. Since what he did with what he had was amazing already, what can he do now?
Well, and he's been talking about doing, going more in depth into this world of the metachlorians or whatever. And, George Lucas could almost tell more of a story about the metachlorians separate from Star Wars, creating like an own separate universe within that. Yeah. Well, he's creative enough that he can say, yeah, it's like, let's say wizards or something, put it in a fantasy realm, like Willow. And now he's still talking about the same thing that Disney doesn't want to touch. And it'd still be wonderful to hear, because he'd be attracting new audiences from a science fiction realm and also hardcore George Lucas fans.
I don't know if I asked you this, but I'm asking anyway. Well, so what is your name on Kickstarter?
So I've got on Kickstarter. Huston Cinematic is the name that I go by. I also have a website, HustonCinematic.xyz. It's kind of a wonky name, but I guess it's easier to remember. And the title of the film is A Winter of Empires.
Would you like to talk about some of the things you get with the tiers and stuff when people?
Sure. Just for visiting the Kickstarter, there's a print and play board game right there on the front page. If you guys like board games, there's also another card game. That's one of the other tiers. There's a book, 3 sample chapters that you can take a look at. You can even download those sample chapters as an ebook. One of the nicer rewards is some plasma sword socks. These are a lot of fun. I always tell people, you can play footsies with these.
That'll be kind of fun. You have blue and red, so you can fight.
Yeah, and one of the later things I'm going to have is the t-shirts.
And how many tiers are there?
Quite a bit, because I've got all the different, you can get some of the board games and the books as downloadable tiers, and then download packs, or if you just want the socks by itself, you can get that. So I make it a lot of different options in terms of what tier do I want. Do I just want the socks? Well, here's a tier for just the socks. Do I want everything? Here's a tier for everything. And it comes at a discount. There's also early bird discounts where, it's a little bit difficult for me to earn back, but, that's why they're early birds, so there's only a couple there. And then I also had to do this interesting thing that worked pretty well on my previous Kickstarter and previous film, where there's actually advertisement spots. So if you're interested in having an advertisement at the end credits or the beginning of the film, where you actually get like 5 seconds before, which is just your product or your other film company, whatever it is, it's there. And you just pay a little bit. It's kind of a fun.
Yeah, it's gonna be kind of fun to see the film. Is this filming now, or is it like in process? Or?
So the filming right now, I've done the teaser trailer. I spent $3,000 on a teaser, and I'm actually the way that the Kickstarter works is I have 2 Kickstarters. First Kickstarter is to make a theatrical trailer, and I use that theatrical trailer to promote to producers that I've been able to reach out to, and I also use it to promote yet another Kickstarter, because I need to ask for hundreds of thousands of dollars, and I can't just do that right off bat. And I can even have that theatrical trailer in theaters, so it's becomes a real thing. Yeah, it's pretty much. But yeah, I'll be able to film the second portion. The theatrical trailer will be done using footage from the teaser, stuff that I haven't shared with that teaser, and then also stuff that I filmed both in Los Angeles and San Francisco.
So like, is this like number one, or just gonna be like a one shot? Are you planning on like doing it like a series or something?
So the long term, what I'm planning long term for this project is that I have two routes. I mean, first I want to hit, no matter what, I want this film to be on a free streaming service. That could be Pluto TV, Crackle, IMDb has a free service now. There's a lot of them. Tubi, whole bunch. Want to be there for free, earn back revenue from commercials. It's going to be free. Second is it's actually going to be both in terms of for you, the audience, and for producers. It's going to be either set up to be a film first in a trilogy or a pilot for a TV show. And that's based off of how the film ends. I've set it up kind of open-ended. And, I'm going to see how the audience responds to the film. And George Lucas actually did that with the first Star Wars. If you watch that first Star Wars and you're looking at it from a marketability standpoint, you're like, oh, he did kind of end that to be just a one-off in case.
Yes, it can.
Yeah, but I do already have a long-term, I do have two strategies for how it could be a long-term film, a long-term trilogy or a long-term TV show. Both work. And I'm very excited about both.
It's kind of fun to actually see some graphic novels too. Sometimes.
Yeah, I'm very open because of the nature of what I'm doing and putting it on streaming services for free. I'm very open to working with other artists and just being like, here's my galaxy, go for it.
Well, so we're going to talk a little bit about set designs and special effects. So can you tell us more about that?
So yeah, regarding special effects and sets and art design, I mean, really all, like in a film like mine, it becomes one thing because I use a lot of green screen. And my miniature model artist is actually also a set designer on this film. Because if you look at the film, a lot of the backgrounds are miniature models, and I can take it and just move it around and put the people there. And they've got little mini green screens that have just a small amount of CGI for the computer screens, and then I film my actors on green screen, and I put it all together layered, and it becomes its own thing. And I save money doing costumes. Like one of the crazy costumes that I remember building was these outfits for the space the Citizens Empire. They're on their ship, and literally I built it using three things: 3D printed pins, nursing gowns for the bottom part, and surfing suits for the top. And it ends up looking like these futuristic, suits that belong on a space, especially when everybody's wearing the same thing. But it's crazy what you can get away with using a very minimum amount of CGI. And I actually marry all these things together with a new kind of special effects that makes it look like CGI, makes it look like animation. And I tried this proof of concept, where you look at a film like Loving Vincent, and they painted every frame to make it look like Vincent van Gogh paintings, in an animation. Well, I decided, well, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to save money. So I use Photoshop, and in both this music video called Mission I, and in now this teaser trailer, I did both the same thing. In the music video, I forget how many frames, but the teaser is 9,000 frames. So you take 10 frames per second, and you apply this effect in each frame, and it, marries it all together, so it all looks like it belongs together in a painting. Paintings in every frame.
That's really cool to put it all together. You never do think about that, and you're like, oh, that's actually quite easier than you're thinking about how it goes.
Yeah. Conceptually, it's hard to think conceptually in terms of how to come up with this idea of painting as a special effects. How do I get there? But once you've implemented it and then you talk about it and people see how to do it, I mean, it's very easy. And I can see a place in the future where everybody's doing it, and it just becomes like a normal thing where you just like click something on your phone and you're like, hey, you're now a painting.
It's kind of interesting though, because I mean, you would never, like, your imagination would never go there. Like, it takes like special imagination to actually think about that.
Yeah, I've always been a very creative person, and then I say, well, how can I do this? If I don't know the answer instinctually, then I research it. Nothing ever just comes to me. I have to research, and if I don't find the answer outright, then I take a little bit from here, a little bit from there, a little bit from here, a little bit from there, and I come up with an idea. And that's all about being resourceful and having a lot of endurance.
Sometimes do you get stuck?
Oh yeah, from time to time I certainly do get stuck. But I think, everybody gets stuck in life. And you have to learn when to just mix taking a breather with keep on pushing.
Like, what would you say to somebody like who needs inspiration who gets stuck? I mean, because you made this incredible thing, maybe you can like help out somebody because you make the sets. You made these incredible sets with little like, they're who you were showing us over there, and they're like very little, and you would think there's something huge.
Well, first off, I've always believed that the biggest elements of any success comes from kindness, endurance, and teamwork. Just kind of working all those things together. Forget about just talent and just raw intelligence, all these other things. And, when you come back to thinking, well, I'm stuck, just go back to those things, okay, I'm stuck, I'm going to take a break. What makes you happy? What makes you feel connected? What makes you think of all these things that inspire you, or just take a breather? Sometimes it's in those moments where we're forcing ourselves to take a break. And I've always got to force myself to take a break. And it's sometimes in those moments where we actually are like, oh my gosh.
My longest memory is like really stubborn because I don't want to quit. She's like, gotta quit for a minute.
Yeah, well, believe it or not, I always schedule breaks. I don't schedule work. I know I'm always going to work, so I schedule breaks. I'm supposed to take a break now. No, I don't want to.
It's just easier to be bored. But, well, is there anything else that you'd like to tell us about the sets, special effects, props? I've got a tremendous crew working with me on this film.
You know, everybody. I mean, some of these guys that have done. I mean, the music, the actors. They've got Emmys behind them. They've got just tremendous work that they've already done, and I just every one of them I feel is tremendously honored to work with and excited. You know, it was a long process getting involved with all of them, and my whole, you know, anytime I got involved with bringing them on board, it was always, are they a good person? Because I wanted to make sure, you know, that was like always the number one, is we create something, we enjoy working together, and we're trying to build a better world.
So is there anything else you would like to talk about the film, or anything else you'd like to bring to our attention, or anything? Or anything about you, any fun facts, anything?
Trying to think of anything else to just talk about off the top of my head. I mean, I've already been working on the film for about a year, or maybe even more than that. Well, because, you know, when you're writing, you spend time on that, and then sometimes it's just like, oh, I've got the idea. Oh no, now I'm serious about it. But you know, these things take a long process, and anytime you go and you try to get serious about something, and you don't have the networking resources, you don't have the money, you don't have the luck. You have to push forward and just build everything stone by stone. And you know, you're doing this grassroots kind of going out, meeting everybody, saying, okay, I've got to make this happen. We're working as a team, and that's why I'm making this free. Is because I don't want people to say, you know, like, here I am getting everybody's help, and then, oh, I need money after I've made it. You know, I don't think that's fair, because if I get this, if I gain any kind of cult status, if I make it, then I have everybody in the world to thank. You know, from that day forward, I mean, my responsibility is to the community.
And it's kind of cool because, you know, you get to help people through your art too and stuff, like we were saying before. But anyway, yeah, thank you for sitting with us. Thank you for talking to us about this and everything. And you know, we'll just keep people updated on it, and we'll put your links in the bottom. But yeah, thank you so much for sitting with us and talking to us.
Thank you. It's been such a pleasure.
This is Naomi Davida, and we're signing off. We'll see you